Hello, this is Max. In this intriguing story, Junie, a captivating transfer student, grapples with her growing attraction to her charismatic English teacher while also being in a romantic relationship with her classmate Matthias. Don't forget to subscribe. The tale unfolds in a French classroom where the students are engrossed in an English conversation exercise conducted by their teacher. Among them sits Junie, a beautiful and quiet newcomer who enrolled in the middle of the school year following her mother's passing. When the teacher poses a question to Junie in English, she appears confused and hesitant to respond. As the bell rings, the teacher engages Junie in conversation about her transfer, teasing her playfully as she exits the classroom. In the hallway, Marie, the class representative, approaches Junie to check if she's okay. Matthias, Junie's cousin, joins them and mentions that their English teacher is rude. Matthias introduces Junie to his friends, including the soft-spoken Otto, Marie's brother Henry, and Jacob, an aspiring photographer. After meeting her new classmates, Junie decides to skip the next class and spends time with them at a nearby cafe. Her peers begin to inquire about her reasons for leaving her previous school, to which she vaguely responds, citing personal reasons. In the history class, Otto gazes at Junie with admiration, prompting Jacob to notice and warn him, hinting that he also has a crush on the new student. During the lesson, their teacher, Florence, discusses the concept of predestination. Henry sarcastically comments on the concept, expressing disbelief. In response, Florence encourages him to offer more constructive input, emphasizing the importance of considering multiple viewpoints. Henry, curious about Florence's personal life, asks if she has a boyfriend, prompting him to glance at his sister. Florence confirms her relationship status, leading to Henry's questioning of whether she has never contemplated disliking her partner. This exchange highlights Henry's perspective that there may be more than two ways to view relationships. After the class, Florence confides in her boyfriend, Nemours, who teaches Italian, about Henry's comments. Nemours becomes anxious, fearing that the students will discover their relationship. Troubled by this, he confides in Marie, his other girlfriend, and warns her not to disclose their relationship to Henry. During math class, Junie confides in her classmate Catherine about skipping the subject, but Catherine surprises her by revealing that she is romantically involved with Matthias as well. Catherine admits that Henry is unaware of her infidelity, and she confesses to Junie out of concern that Matthias might reveal the truth. Later that day, Jacob takes a photograph of his classmates, including Junie. After the photo shoot, Junie bids farewell to Jacob and his girlfriend Jean and walks home with Matthias. Unbeknownst to them, Esther, Matthias's girlfriend, observes them from a distance. While walking, they encounter Otto, and Matthias excuses himself briefly, leaving Junie and Otto alone. Otto expresses admiration for Junie's name, inspired by a character from Britannicus, and Junie explains that her namesake torments Emperor Neron and vows to become a priestess to avoid marriage. This conversation leaves Otto contemplating his own name and its significance. Matthias later informs Junie that Otto wants to ask her out, but Junie finds the idea ridiculous. The following day, Junie walks past Otto without responding to his greeting. Her distant behavior catches Henry's attention, and Matthias informs him about Junie's recent loss. In math class, Estudeville calls on Jacob to solve a problem on the board. In the next class, Otto writes a note to Junie, seeking an explanation for her distant behavior. As the story continues, Otto folds the note he intended to give to Junie during class, but instead of passing it to her, Henry reads it and responds. This unexpected turn of events keeps the note from reaching Junie. After their history class, Matthias and Henry encourage Otto to take the initiative and kiss Junie before Jacob gets the chance. Following a romantic moment, the reserved Otto confesses his deep love for Junie, and she reciprocates by embracing him, urging him to always look after her. In the next scene, Junie arrives late for her Italian class with Mr. Nemours. She sits beside him, and he curiously takes her pen and writes something on her paper. During class, Henry plays a recording of Maria Callas singing Lucia, which deeply affects Junie. When Nemours inquires if she's okay, she leaves the room in tears, leaving her belongings behind. Later, Nemours finds a beautiful photo of Junie between the pages of her notebook. Nemours talks to Matthias, returning Junie's belongings left behind in the classroom, except for the photo. They also discuss an upcoming field trip and assign Henry the task of persuading Junie to participate. That evening, Otto invites his girlfriend to be his partner for a French project, but she declines and asks his cousin to walk home instead. This behavior upsets Matthias, who scolds Junie for not being more considerate toward her sincere boyfriend. In response, Junie criticizes Matthias for mentioning sincerity when he is involved with two women, Esther and Catherine. Troubled by his girlfriend's distant behavior, Otto calls Marie for advice, expressing concern that Junie may never love him. Marie advises him to give Junie more time. Later, Marie meets with Nemours, who abruptly expresses a desire to break up with her. When Marie inquires if it has something to do with Florence, Nemours denies it but does not reveal the actual reason, leaving Marie to assume he is ashamed of their relationship. In a cafe, waitress Nicole serves food to Nemours and notices a picture of Junie on his table. She asks if Junie is his new student, and he confirms it. Nemours decides to keep the photo, and Nicole reminds him to respect his female students and not enter into romantic relationships with them, considering their vulnerability. Despite her advice, he breaks up with Florence to pursue Junie. The following day, Jacob displays his photos on the library wall, including one of Junie. Otto notices this and asks for a print of Junie's picture, but Jacob advises him to seek permission from Junie, mentioning that he has already given her a copy. Madame Tournon, the librarian, reminds Otto that he has 17 overdue books, promising to return them the next day. When Otto requests Junie's photo, she confesses that she lost it. They engage in a conversation about Madame Tournon, the good-looking librarian, and Otto recounts the story of her past, including her tragic loss and a clandestine relationship with a sports teacher named Sancerre. The story continues with Estouteville confiding in the sports instructor, Sancerre, about his secret relationship, revealing that he has been seeing someone for 6 months. When Sancerre presses him to know who it is, Estouteville confesses that it's Madame Tournon, the same woman Sancerre has been secretly dating. Later that day, Junie rushes into the hallway and accidentally bumps into Nemours. She apologizes for leaving his class abruptly the last time and asks if he noticed her photo on her notebook. However, the instructor lies, suggesting that he didn't see it. Nemours assigns Junie to read an Italian passage during class and admires her as she does so. Afterward, he asks her to translate it for her classmates, and each time she says, "I love you," he smiles. In the evening, Junie sits at a cafe, listening to music and drying her hair with a towel after getting caught in the rain. She smiles and looks around at the customers. That night, Estouteville joins Nemours for a drink and occupies the same spot where Junie sat earlier. He advises Nemours to be careful with Junie, describing her as someone who is in control and full of vibrancy. When Estouteville suggests that Junie's attitude might stem from her fragility, Nemours disagrees, describing her as challenging. Nemours reveals that he has ended his relationships with Florence and his other partners because he has fallen deeply for Junie, even though he knows she will never love him in return. On their field trip the following day, Nemours swaps seats with Matthias during a film screening. After the movie ends, Marie discovers a letter and assumes it belongs to the instructor. She passes it to her classmates outside the theater. Curious, Junie talks to Jean, who had last read the letter, and asks for it. Jean hands it to her with the advice to return it to Marie when she's done. Unbeknownst to them, Nemours witnesses their exchange. Following this, the students head to the train station and quickly board a train, but Junie misses it and is left alone on the platform. While waiting for a new train, she reads the letter from Nemours. The content of the letter is a romantic message, but it doesn't specify to whom it is directed. As she reads, Junie feels an odd sense of jealousy, assuming that the instructor wrote it for someone else, revealing that she also has feelings for him. Meanwhile, after getting off the train, Jacob inquires with Matthias and Otto if they have read the rumored letter from Nemours. Matthias checks his pockets and hurries to Marie to find the letter, but she informs him that she gave it to Jacob, who also reveals that he doesn't have it. In a state of panic, Matthias confides in Nemours, explaining that everyone believes he lost a letter that actually belonged to him. He asks Nemours for a favor, to ask Marie for the letter back and acknowledge that it's his, but without revealing that it belongs to him. He emphasizes that Marie must not know that the letter is his and can't tell Henry about it. Matthias then reveals to Nemours that he and Henry are secretly dating, but that one day he met Martin and fell in love with him. Henry discovered their secret and took a compromising photo of them, threatening to put it on the school website if they continue their relationship. After the field trip, the teacher asks Otto to talk privately with Junie about Matthias. Knowing she has the letter, he informs her that the letter doesn't belong to him but to her cousin, Matthias. Junie initially refuses to believe him and insists it must have fallen from his pocket. When she questions why Nemours needs to be involved, he explains that he must pretend that the letter is his because Matthias requested him to do so. Junie smiles upon learning that her assumption is wrong and Nemours is not in love with someone else. However, she reveals that she tore up the letter. Matthias finds out about this and asks Junie to rewrite the message and return it to Marie. Junie agrees and recreates the letter. As she writes it, she smiles and glances at Nemours beside her. Before an Italian class, Junie asks Otto to skip it with her. When Nemours notices them, he follows and overhears their conversation. Junie reveals her plan to leave and spend her vacation at her father's house to shield herself from someone she doesn't want to love. When Otto inquires about the reason, she explains that she intends to go away to prevent herself from falling in love. When Otto asks about the person's identity, she doesn't reveal it but acknowledges that she felt that person's love in other ways. Upon hearing this, Nemours stops listening and leaves. On his way back to the classroom, Jacob informs him that Henry and Matthias are fighting. After the class, the bruised Matthias departs with his mother and Junie while the police arrest the brutal teen for his actions. Junie meets Otto at the back of the school the next day and gives him a children's book titled his name, and they share a romantic moment. Later, at the cafe, Junie comforts Esther, Matthias's girlfriend, who learns about her cousin's involvement with Martin. Suddenly, Nemours arrives to talk to her, but the student asks him to leave. Esther's return to campus and her update to Otto about Junie's whereabouts at the cafe with the teacher sets off a series of events. Otto's attempt to kiss Junie at the cafe is met with avoidance, and Junie tells him she will skip her Italian class. However, Otto, attending his Russian class, notices Junie through the window and realizing she lied about skipping class. Otto then enlists his classmate Tennel to keep an eye on Junie. Tennel, misunderstanding a moment he observes between Nemours and Junie, believes they are kissing. He reports this to Otto, who confronts Junie as they walk home. When Junie denies any wrongdoing, Otto, recalling past experiences of infidelity, doesn't believe her. The next day, a heartbroken Otto arrives at school, chooses to isolate himself from his friends, and tragically commits the unthinkable. Junie, deeply affected by Otto's demise, doesn't attend school for 3 weeks. During this time, Nemours takes a sick leave for the rest of the semester. Junie eventually returns to school, and one day, while walking home with Matthias and Martin, she encounters Nemours hiding behind a tree. After sending Matthias ahead, she speaks with Nemours, who apologizes for his behavior. Junie agrees to go with him, and they escape to the city together. In Nemours' apartment, they discuss their feelings. Junie is skeptical about their relationship and fears Nemours, whom she sees as a playboy, might eventually leave her. She admits feeling jealous over a letter she thought Nemours wrote to Matthias, and is afraid she won't be able to handle the pain if he replaces her with another woman. After Nemours walks her home, he eagerly anticipates their next meeting. However, Junie doesn't show up. Matthias later informs Nemours that Junie has left for good, advising him not to wait for her as she doesn't want to hear from him again. Nemours is left heartbroken. Junie, on a ship the following morning, embraces her newfound freedom, leaving behind the complexities and confusions of her past relationships and experiences. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.